What is going on, everybody? What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, you already know the drill. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Post notification bell if you haven't, so you'll know whenever I go live, whenever I push out any new content. You know, the typical drill, all the good stuff. Nonetheless, we can talk about however we've done it. How has it been done? The fashion it's been done in. This team is in first place of this division. We're a full game ahead of everybody else. We sit at 500 with 5 games to go. And the roller coaster of a season it's been, from the good start to coming back down to reality quickly to basically going into the bye week, with the season dead to rights almost. Now coming out this bye, we've won 2 key, very pivotal games, both versus the Aints and versus the Jets respectively. And now we find ourselves week 14 welcoming the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into the bench. It's going to be a big game, man. It's going to be a big game. These two teams met in Tampa earlier this season. The Falcons, it was a very ugly win that it shouldn't have honestly have been as close as it was, but it did end up being that way. The Falcons slugged their way into a 16-13 victory. Yeah, it's always a tough game versus Tampa Bay. Yes, sir, A-Fizz. I see you in there, man. Shout out to A-Fizz. Roll Tide, man. Hey, look. Got a tough one versus Michigan, but I definitely think it can be done. But we're going to talk about these Falcons here tonight, man. It's always a tough game between the Falcons and Bucs. It's always going to be fought hard to the nail. These two teams always play each other. See, I've always said, we hate the Aints, and we really love to have fun with Carolina as well, because I feel like the I-85 dynamic. Tampa Bay, outside of the 3 years with Tom Brady, it's really felt like nothing. It honestly, it feels like the most bland, boring hype going into this game on a typical basis. They just feel like another team does, to be honest. And that's probably, I don't know if that's the same way that they feel about us, but to me at least, Tampa Bay, it feels like another game. It really does. It's just the fact we face them twice a year. Now, they are a division opponent. There's no discounting that. Even though you look at the Buccaneers and say that they're definitely not, what they were with Tom Brady, they still have weapons. They still have a pretty respectable defense. Baker Mayfield is not the worst quarterback in the world. And they are literally right in this thing. I think a lot of people have discounted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the fact that they're in this NFC South race too. But I'm really going to get in my first point about this game. There's a reason why not a lot of people have paid attention to the Buccaneers in this NFC South race, because this Buccaneers team is not a playoff team. Now, granted, you can argue none of these teams are playoff teams. You can argue the Falcons aren't a playoff team. You can argue the Saints aren't a playoff team. You can argue Tampa Bay's not a playoff team. We know Carolina isn't a playoff team. Whoever wins this division this is the worst division in football, and that there's no denying that. But someone has to win it. And at this point, it's going to be either the Falcons, Bucs, or Saints. And the Falcons are definitely in the best position to win it right now. But the Falcons have to take care of business. They have to take care of business on Sunday versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, to me, I really feel like when we look at Baker Mayfield, you have to look at a guy that if the situation is right, and the game is running smoothly, then it can go pretty good. Baker Mayfield can have a good game. He's as I said, situation's going well, Baker Mayfield can have a good game, but if the situation falls apart around Baker Mayfield is going to drown right with it. So really, Baker Mayfield's success depends on everything else, especially with how that offense runs. Now, Mike Evans is a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, probably. He started his career with, I think, 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. The dude is an absolute monster. He's underrated. He doesn't get enough respect. He's never been in that best wide receiver in the NFL conversation, but to me, I think he's the definition of consistency when it comes to that receiver position. You don't really hear as much from him as you maybe would other top receivers. Chris Godwin, he is a very nice number 2 option for Tampa Bay. Could probably be a number 1 on a good bit of teams. They also have former Falcon Russell Gage there. Tampa Bay has pieces on that offense. Now, the one thing Tampa Bay does not really have is a respectable, good running game. Rachaad White is probably what you would say is an average number 2 running back on about any team, but Tampa Bay probably has the worst running back room in football. And it's really been what's killed them in a lot of these games. That's really a lot of the reason why you can't take Tampa Bay seriously as a playoff contender, because they don't have a running game. The one thing with the Falcons is at least the Falcons, if Arthur Smith is able to keep his head out of his ass, they can get that running game going. The Saints have Alvin Kamara. Tampa Bay really doesn't have that running game. So with that being said, man, that's really been the detriment for the Buccaneers this year. It was a detriment the first time they faced us. If they would have been able to have a running game going, we would have not won that game down in Tampa. The reason why we were able to win that game and our defense was able to dominate, the Buccaneers did not get a running game going. They forced Baker to win the game, and our defense, they got just enough pressure on Baker to the point where Baker did melt. And I really feel like that's going to have to be the story here. I feel like you're going to have to. Now, granted, they are good at making sure Baker Mayfield does not get taken down for the sack. But you're going to have to get pressure to Baker Mayfield. And I think you can do it. I really do. If you take a look at Bud Dupree, you take a look at Arnold Ebiketie, those two guys have really come, especially AK. He has came along in these past few weeks. And he's really as a rotational pass rusher, which is the role he needs to stay in. You keep him in that position, that he's in right now, you have something in Arnold Ebiketie. I think we see it. We have potential there. But he's got to be used right. He's got to be used as a rotational pass rusher. And if you continue to do that, I definitely feel like, he's going to continue to take leaps and bounds in his progression. Onyemata, obviously a big story. Grady Jarrett is not playing in this game. Obviously that I feel like Grady Jarrett being out, it definitely hurts in a game like this. You can say it hurt in the Saints game. But I think you have to keep in mind that, that game, anything can happen regardless. When you're looking at a game like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and just what that game typically comes down to, not having a guy like Grady Jarrett really, it doesn't do many benefits. It just does not at all. So Tampa Bay's offense, there's potential there, but they're also inconsistent. If they don't have a running game going, which they're almost never able to get it going, they have to rely on that passing game. And if you lock down those receivers and you get pressure on Baker Mayfield, that's where you see that offense just get anemic. Now, where the big issue is for the Falcons in this game is kind of getting into the injury report. The Falcons are beaten up on that defensive side of the ball. We really came out of New York, and I had a very bad feeling it was going to happen. I mentioned it last week. All we can really pray for is we come out of that game with as minimal amount of injuries as possible. I don't think that we came out of that game pretty beaten up. AJ Terrell suffered a concussion. He's in concussion protocol. I don't know if he plays under or not. He did practice today. I was kind of shocked to see that, to be honest. Jeff Okudah, I believe he practiced today. So, I'd have to assume Okudah is good to go Sunday. I really feel like the big story for this defense, who wasn't able to go and practice, that got beaten up in that game as well, is Nate Landman. Nate Landman has been a dog on that defense. He's really been one of the most valuable pieces on that defense. It feels like we're always saying his name at least a few times a game. He's making a play out there. And man, he's hungry. We talked about it. He's taken his opportunity and he's ran with it. And I'm being honest, man, when Troy comes back, it's very hard to see Troy just taking that right away from him, or them giving that right back to Troy. It feels like you're going to have to find a different spot for Troy, because where Landman is right now, it's just, you couldn't ask for anything better. He's an old school style linebacker. No, he doesn't have the, speed or the athleticism of a Troy Anderson, but man, he goes out there and he is just ready to take you out. And that's what you want out of an NFL linebacker. I've always thought that, linebacker, that's the most ruthless position in the sport. You have to be willing to do anything at linebacker, because you're going to be asked to do anything. You're going to be asked to rush the passer. You're going to be asked to drop back in coverage from time, stop the run. So you better be able to do it all as a linebacker. And while Nate Landman, but most of all as a linebacker, you have to have the intelligence, and you have to have a little bit of that hunger. That's always what I've thought playing linebacker was like. And to me, man, even though Nate Landman, he doesn't have the athleticism, man, he has that hunger. He has that intelligence. He knows when to make a play. He doesn't, absolutely just get completely mauled up in coverage, or however you want to put it. Kind of like how Troy Anderson did, man. Troy Anderson was not a good coverage linebacker. And Nate Landman, he really isn't the best coverage linebacker either. At the end of the day, he is finding one way to make a play. And if we're without Nate Landman on Sunday, man, it's going to be a big hit to this defense. It really is. I know someone else. Caleb McGarry switching over to the offensive side of the ball. And what the offense really has to do. Caleb McGarry went out as well. Storm Norton came in. To be honest with you, even though obviously you would want McGarry out there because you're paying his ass, and McGarry hasn't had all that bad of a past few weeks, it really, to me, feels like Caleb McGarry and Storm Norton. If Storm Norton were to start, that's not necessarily the biggest loss we can have on Sunday. However, with that being said, we're still going to have our hands full, because Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, that's obviously on the inside, and that's Mr. Dahlman's problem, which, that should definitely go absolutely amazing. But nonetheless, I think Todd Bowles is going to come into this game, and he is going to want a Shaq Barrett to do work off the edge, especially on that right tackle. One way or another, whether it's Storm Norton or Caleb McGarry. So Matthews is going to have to hold up that blind side, man, because Ritter's already going to have pressure coming from that right side, whoever it is, Storm Norton, Caleb McGarry, Shaq Barrett's a tough matchup. So I really feel like they're going to come into this game and they're going to want to get Ritter rattled, which is why you have to come out in this game and you have to establish a run game early. This is a type of game where you're going to have to get everybody involved. You're going to have to get both Bijan and Algier going. You're going to have to get Algier going up that gut. Wear Vita Vea down. Wear that Tampa Bay interior down. Wear those linebackers down. Wear Levante David down. Let Bijan do work on the outside as the game goes along. But overall, I really feel like this. Tyler Algier has had some good history versus Tampa Bay. He has. And so has Ritter. Ritter's 2-0 versus the Bucs. So to me, this feels like a game you get it going up the gut early, and that is where you get your play action going. I'm gonna call this right now. I'm going to call it right now. I really honestly feel like either Kyle Pitts or Drake London's having a big day on Sunday. Whoever that may be, you can choose. I really feel like if you can exploit, the one thing with Kyle Pitts that I will say is I feel like we can talk about whatever we want to, what the big issue is with Kyle Pitts, because there's a big issue with Kyle Pitts on this team. Does he even want to be here? We can talk all about all that. Listen, that talk we really save for the bulk of it, in the offseason. Yes, it's important to look forward to what we might be talking about. As long as this season is going on and we have a chance at the playoffs, that's the number one focus. And Kyle Pitts is on this team. He needs to do everything in his power to help us get as far as we can, and we need to do everything in his power to get him involved, put him in a good situation. Because that's the bottom line, man. This is a big game on Sunday. It's a battle for first place. Not a lot of people are talking about that. It was the Saints game 2 weeks ago, and everyone was talking about it. But not a lot of people are talking about this is another battle for. If Tampa Bay wins this, they are in first place. You would have a 6-7 Buccaneers team in first place in this division. And look, man, that I gotta be honest. That is not a situation you want to necessarily deal with. So far, you're 3-0 in the division. You've been able to take care of your division opponents, but I would probably say out of every single division game you played, this is probably the toughest one yet. Because even though you're home in the bins, which I think is a big benefit, to me, those injuries could be very key. I feel like when you're talking about Mike Evans, if you're going to put a Clark Phillips on him, that's a huge test for Clark Phillips. It really is. It's putting a lot on that young man's plate. Now, there was some expectation for Clark Phillips coming in out of Utah, but to match him up with Mike Evans, who, let's face it, is one of the best receivers in the NFL, period. That's not a matchup you can just 100% say you're confident in. There has to be some of those jitters there with that matchup. So with that being said, though, I really feel like as far as that offense goes, the offense, even though Tampa Bay is really going to want pressure, that's going to provide opportunities. But you have to find those mismatches. You have to get a Kyle Pitts and a Drake London involved. One or another. I really feel like if you have Drake London on your fantasy, I feel like start him, because I feel like this is where you could see that Ritter-London connection come through. I also feel like you're going to see Kyle Pitts get involved on a couple big plays. But I feel like in order for that to happen, you have to get Algier going up the middle. Algier is not a toss, run the stretch play with. He's not that type of guy. That is more Bijan's game. Bijan, he's not just even though I do think, if you get Bijan going through the tackles, sometimes it can work. Bijan's not necessarily built for that. I can understand. I really feel like with Bijan, yes, you have through the tackle or, east to west, run the counter, all the good stuff you want to do, the tall sweep. But in order for that to happen, man, you got to get Tyler Algier going. And Algier is a up-the-gut running back for the most part. And that's really, I feel like, going to be what sets up our offense in this game. So at the end of the day, this is, I really honestly feel like if you want to talk about, games the Falcons played this season and how tough they are, this might be one of the toughest ones. It really might. Obviously, the Saints game is always going to be a big game. But if you're talking about a game where the Falcons actually have some mountains to climb and have some things to overcome, it is this game. You could be without A.J. Terrell. I don't think you'll be without Okudah, but he is on that injury report. You could very well be without Nate Landman, who has no doubt been the breakout star on your defense. You could be without your starting right tackle. But at the end of the day, it's a next man up sport, and now we have to see how our depth does. With that being said, really talking about this game, I kind of want to just, kind of go back to, the fanfare, and I think where that goes, do I think the bins will be packed on Sunday? No, because, now I want to see that bins packed. I do. I want to see the bins packed. I want to see people bringing their flags, getting excited, creating that hostile home field advantage for the Falcons. That is really what I stress. Be there, make as much fucking noise as you possibly can, create that home field advantage. With that being said, man, there is no 50 years of hip hop. It's not that. You're not going to have Ludacris coming from the rafters. You're not going to have T.I. family drama on Sunday at the Benz. It's going to be just good old-fashioned NFC South football is what it's going to be. This is really going to be, I feel like, a game it's going to be another one of those tough games that comes down to the wire, as a lot of these games have been all season, how a lot of Falcons Bucs games are. With that being said, man, I would lie if I said I was not very nervous heading into this game. I think I've already conveyed it. I feel like there's definitely a way the Falcons can win this game. And I think that really involves Arthur Smith not overthinking this thing. It involves Arthur Smith going to what works. And then after that, let the rest of your offense get set up. But you can't be doing the cute shit a lot in this game. You can't. Because I'm telling you straight up, could be a detriment. And the Falcons have a big opportunity. I said it. The Falcons have a big opportunity. If you can win this game, you're talking about, taking it a step further, to being able to lock up this division. Now, will that happen, next week in Carolina? No, it won't happen next week in Carolina. The odds are, the safe bet will probably be it still comes down to the final week in New Orleans, even though the Saints look awful right now. With that being said, though, you have a big opportunity here, and you have to take advantage of it. You can't let the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take this game. Would it be the end of the world? No, it wouldn't. But this is really just one of those games where it feels like, you got to win it. It really does. With that being said, getting into final predictions. It's not going to be a very high scoring game. I could very well see it playing out a lot like how it did initially. The first meeting in Tampa. I feel like you get that running game going. Maybe you see a little bit of CP in this game. You see, obviously, I think you get Bijan going. But I feel like this could very well be a majority Algier game. This feels like a game where you see Algier and Drake London really, I think, eat on this day. I feel like Ritter will be able to find success at times. He's just got to make smart decisions with the fucking football. There can't be any doing the stupid shit or none of that. It's just going to be, you see a man, get the ball to him. One of the things I'll say that I've definitely seen Des, and not just Des, a whole lot of NFL and college quarterbacks do, is you literally have a man just when this is in general. And this is the part of the sport that just gets me. When your guy is open, just give him the ball. Just do it. Don't try to get cute, you get it to, you had it predetermined. This isn't Madden. It's not. So stop trying to, just because you feel like you got to get the ball to somebody, got to get to him this play. No, absolutely not. At the end of the day, if your man is open, take it. With that being said, this to me, it really feels like a game that's going to come down, in a very tight window. And it feels like, who's going to be able to sustain the most momentum throughout this game is really what it feels like. The Falcons can't make very many mistakes in this game. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and say the Falcons win. I am. I definitely feel like, even though, no, you're not going to have, I don't think it's going to be sold out. I think that stadium will be full of majority Falcons fans. I know I'll be there. I do expect that stadium to be full majority Falcons fans. I do see that really being one of the key, catalysts in this game. I feel like this is a type of game where the crowd is going to be able to get involved, especially late. So you're going to the game, man, making noise. This could be a game where home field advantage really comes into key, especially with how beat up we are. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and say the Falcons do win. I'll say Falcons win 20-16. It's probably going to be another low-scoring game. We'll come down to the fourth quarter. Probably come down to which defense can make a stop. I will say this. We haven't allowed a touchdown 9 straight quarters. Let's see if it can continue here. Let's see how long it can continue, man. This defense has been balling out all year. That being said, man, that is it for me. I really don't have anything planned the rest of the week, so I'll be back Sunday evening, probably Sunday night. It'll probably be a little later than usual, with the recap, obviously, everything that happened in this game. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.